Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Premodern. Yep, that's right, another friggin' Premodern deck tech thingy, and today we're going to be talking about Tinker. Yep, this friggin' card. This thing's, well, pretty much it speaks for itself. I really don't think I need to say much more about it. But this card is certainly much more reasonable and pre-modern. So we get the privilege of playing with it, which is pretty sweet. Not something you get to do every day, you know. So let's get into it. All right. Like I said, Tinker's sweet, and unless you're playing Vintage, you don't really get a chance to play it. So yeah. I mean, I guess maybe if you're jamming those old World Championship decks, those things. I think there's a Tinker deck in there, but yeah, not a lot of opportunity. So this is pretty cool. Um, Get to play pretty much all of the good artifact cards. All the sweet ones. A lot of one ofs. You don't really want to draw multiples, or you just only need one copy available. Just due to the nature of the deck, of course, due to Tinker itself being able to tutor stuff out. So that's pretty cool. This is just another ancient tomb style deck. So instead of like Wildfire, which plays red, this is Tinker, which plays blue. And I've seen some people play like blue and red and stuff. Not 100% sure about that. I mean, if I could play Gilded Lotus or something, I'd probably play blue and red. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna be happening. So um, this is pretty sweet, pretty awesome. And I've never said it before. I don't think I've said, at least not that I can remember, is that these kind of decks are pretty sweet, pretty fun. You don't really get to play with this kind of archetype, and they're not really like good in say like something like modern or whatever, and they don't have a lot of required cards, obviously. Like you need stuff like obviously Wildfire, of course, which you have available in Modern. But you don't have Ancient Tomb itself or really very good artifact ramp and stuff. So this is one of those old archetypes that we're just not going to really see too much of in recent formats. You know, like anything like Ponza, we'll probably never see anything like that. They don't like 3 mana land destruction. So this deck's kind of a relic, no pun intended. Um, but yeah, it's fun. You get to make. I mean, when was the last time you got to play Phyrexian Colossus? I mean, that card is sweet. I like playing big spells. I like doing cool things, and this deck certainly enables that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right. So you'll notice there's a bunch of one-ofs here. Some stuff's a little techy, a little spicy. Like for example, main deck Jester's crap. Jester's crap. Is that some sort of Freudian slip? Jester's cap and Null Brooch. These are typically sideboard cards. I kind of like a main deck. You get to know what they're playing game one. At least with Jester's cap, of course. And then Null Brooch is really important, at least to have in your 75 somewhere, because it does deal with a lot of stupid crap, like a lot of powerful hate cards against you. And then we have other techie stuff like Crumbling Sanctuary. You only really want one of those. Um, and Winter Orb, usually pretty good. It does play into our land destruction stuff, but you only really want one. Same thing with something like Sphere of Resistance or Mishra's Helix. Um, Urza's Blueprint, pretty sweet. Has Echo though, so it's really expensive. But again, just one will definitely make you go pretty strong, pretty hard, especially when combined with Voltaic Key. But yeah, so lots of tech, lots of one-ofs. Um, I I kind of pre-boarded for aggro a little heavier because it got triple Masticore. Um, so like when you can just draw it and play it early, that's usually pretty nice. Whereas a lot of these other cards you want to play like you know mid to late game. Obviously, Urza's Blueprint you really want to have 6 mana when you untap with it. Obviously, then we have Stroke of Genius, which is kind of cool. I mean, this card is well, it just lets you refill after uh, after you puke your hand on the board. Um, And I mean the lands again, yeah, Ancient Tomb, City Traders Island, Sapraz and Scary. Maybe Crystal Vein. Maybe could play a couple of those or somewhere. Maybe instead of an island, play another Crystal Vein. Mindstone over Sky Diamond. I think we have enough blue sources, and Mindstone is good too. Well, it's lets you play it and then sack it easier to tinker if you don't have an artifact in play. And of course, without tinker, you can just sack it to draw a card. Um, Gosh, there's a lot of wonky stuff in here. Fourth Rand Dynamo is pretty normal. You really want to just ramp hard. And Sideboard is more random stuff, like another copy of Crumbling Sanctuary, just to sort of increase our chances to draw it, but also against artifact destruction, we'll be able to tinker up a second one. Chill against red decks, Arcane Lab against combo decks, or decks just want to play a bunch of spells in a turn. Sabo's Web, Caltrops, I mean, pretty obvious what those are good against. Same thing, Sphere Resistance, Hibernation against green decks. The split between Crypt and Furnace, I'm not sure if it should be 3 and 1 or 1 and 3, but having access to both is good. But I like Voltaic Key plus Phyrexian Furnace is a pretty sweet combo. So that did definitely play a bit of a role in choosing which ones I wanted. So we'll just go with the split for the time being. Okay, so these are some of the Tinker targets, cards that you pretty important, very powerful in certain matches. So let's just start off with Phyrexian Processor. This card's sweet. It's great with Voltaic Key. It's great to land early against control decks. It's basically a never-ending stream of dudes. A little bit worse against aggressive decks, obviously. You can end up paying a bunch of life and then just dying next turn or on the spot. That is what our next card is for, Crumbling Sanctuary. This card is sweet. Look how sweet this card is. Frickin' Squeeze protected. He's gonna be fine. He's got like 50 cards left in his library. You're gonna be okay, Squee. So this is sweet against the red decks and green decks and all sorts of aggressive decks that are, especially the slow ones. Something like White Weenie, this is just brutal for, but they can actually remove it with Disenchant too. But against aggro decks, Crumbling Sanctuary rocks. Mishra's Helix just sort of plays into our overall plan of like just being able to mana screw people. Just lock them out of the game with your Helix. Super sweet. And Urza's Blueprints, this card is awesome if you can resolve it against not combo decks, any deck where card advantage is king, so like control or mid-range, board control sort of style decks. Urza's Blueprints, pretty sweet. Remember though, you have to pay the echo on this thing, so if you tinker it out, you gotta have six ready to pay the echo cost. So just be aware, just be aware. All right. So the sideboard, there could be additional stuff like a null. A null seems pretty sweet against combo decks. Turn one interaction, pretty great. Upheaval, just as a way to just deal with everything. Obviously, this is a pretty awesome combo in like Cube, or well, it would be in Commander if you could play Upheaval, but just obviously you have a ton of mana. Float a bajillion mana, Upheaval, replay your board, they're left with nothing, and then they can't do anything. That might be overkill, but obviously Upheaval does deal with a bunch of random crap that you may not see coming. So could be good there. Rushing River against just hateful, nasty, mean permanents, that might be pretty good too. Defense Grid against control decks. I'm talking too fast. Maybe my brain's not working. Defense Grid against control decks or any deck that wants to play a lot of stuff on your turn or whatever. So yeah, Defense Grid's pretty sweet, at least as a one of. And of course, Hydroblast as additional cards against red decks, of course. So maybe some number of Hydroblast instead of Chill, or maybe some sort of mix. But the biggest problem, of course, this deck that we really want to deal with would be Null Rod. Most decks aren't playing for Null Rod, and in fact, I'd say most aren't. I mean, the only decks that would be like white decks that would play like Enlightened Tutor for their Null Rods, so not actual for, but have greater access to it. But still, even a resolved Null Rod, depending on the board state, can be very hard to deal with. So oftentimes a good strategy against some of these decks with Null Rod is just get a bunch of fat on board ASAP, and then just try and beat them down, and hopefully that'll work. Of course, against bounce spells, something like Rushing River would be pretty good here too. Of course, that's the Null Brooch was pretty good against something like Null Rod. There's also all sorts of other annoying crap, like any of the Blood Moon, Back to Basics, Choke, that kind of stuff can be can kind of get you depending on the board state and what lands you have in play, of course. Same thing with board wipes, Meltdown, Pulverize, Pernicious Deed, Navinral's Disc, that kind of crap. Also pretty bad, pretty crappy. So without a stroke of genius to get us back in the game and draw a bunch of cards, we're definitely up a creek without a paddle. So yeah, that can not be good. Okay, so one of the nice things though about this deck is that you have a lot of different threats. So obviously Phyrexian Colossus is kind of cool. If they have annoying cards like say a Cho Mano or something, right? They need a bunch of guys to block. It has Mega Menace, so that's cool. Stuff like Phyrexian Processor is very powerful against slower decks or decks without burn or control decks, that kind of stuff. Especially when you play it on like turn 2 or something, and you're just like jamming like millions and millions of power of dudes in play. Very cool. Yeah, so all sorts of different threats. But the best way to deal with a lot of this stuff is just to, well, not let them cast it. So getting like a Mishra's Helix in play early, and then just helixing them every turn is pretty good, honestly. So that's really powerful. And one of the nice things is that Voltaic Key, once it's done untapping your like your Therian Dynamos and stuff, you can get extra cards with Urza's Blueprints, or you can untap your Mishra's Helix to use it for blocking with a Karn in play. Gives your creatures like Phyrexian Colossus pseudo vigilance, and obviously eliminates its drawback of having to pay life. So yeah, key does everything, and even multiples aren't bad because you can you can sack them to Tinker, which is kind of nice. So I just opted for 4 Voltaic Key because it pretty much feels like not really ever dead, unless you only draw like an opening hand with like 4 Voltaic Keys or something. But yeah, the deck it does have some interesting decision trees, and it can be kind of tricky to figure out what kind of hand you want to keep versus like, are you all in on Tinker? So if they counter your Tinker, are you SOL? Or do you have like 2 Ancient Tombs? This is great against control and combo decks. This is bad against Sly. Obviously taking all that extra damage is brutal. So yeah, it sort of depends. But yeah, some of the lines of play, aren't super obvious. But yeah, and playing around Disruption can be tough if they're able to interact with the artifacts and crap. But typically, it's pretty fun, pretty powerful. Just try and bomb people out if you can. And that's pretty sweet. But yeah, I do like going for the mana denial. So getting that Winter Orb in play, and then just like untapping your 3 and Dynamos and stuff, and just going nuts and casting stuff, and slowing them down to a crawl. Maybe I should put an Icy Manipulator in here. I was thinking about it. I do like Icy Manipulator quite a bit. I mean, who doesn't like Icy Manipulator, right? I'm big into LD. That's good stuff. Um, but yeah, this deck is pretty cool, pretty fun. I like it. Definitely a lot you can do to like, you know, depending on what kind of decks you think you're gonna play against. A lot of meta gaming you can do, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of good artifacts in this format, so pretty sweet, pretty sweet. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. There's really not much else to it. It's a pretty easy deck to play for the most part, um, especially if you know what your opponent's on, so you can mold to the right hands and know what to play, and what kind of cards to be putting in your sideboards, not just like on like what your opponent is on, but what the meta game is, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's it. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is a pretty interesting deck. Pretty fun. Always like casting these old cards. Like playing my brown artifact decks. That's pretty cool. So that's it for today, guys. So thanks for stopping by and have a great day.